It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by HP Instant Ink. No one is reading your mind, but HP Instant Ink knows when your printer is running low and sends new cartridges before you run out. So you never have to think about ink. For details, visit hp.com/instant ink Spotify. Conditions apply.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily podcast on the Toronto Blue Jays, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to Locked On Blue Jays, your daily dose of Toronto Blue Jays talk directly into your electronic device of choice, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Andrews of JaysFromTheCouch.com, and this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at RockAuto.com. I now know a new part that I can order from RockAuto.com, as earlier today I found out exactly what happened to my car. Turns out, and this isn't even a foreign issue for Corollas, my water pump exploded. And I didn't know cars had a water pump, but they do. It's to pump coolant into the radiator. And apparently the bearings can sometimes seize up. So, guessing that's what was making all the noise for the past couple weeks. And was about to go get it looked at the next day, as I mentioned, and it blowed up. So, between parts and labor and towing the car so I didn't try and just overheat it and do any more damage, trying to drive it myself to the mechanic, it's going to be about $800, which sucks. I mean, thankfully, I'm not that stupid with my money, so, this is the kind of thing I save for, but it still really sucks. And hopefully those parts get in quickly from Rock Auto. So, we'll see what happens. I'm trying not to be too downcast. Blue Jays finally had a win I can be very happy about. Beat the Yankees 7-3 in the Tuesday game. And I'm going to focus on the happy for the majority of this podcast because our final segment's going to be very much not happy. It's going to be pretty dark. So, we'll be discussing that. And trying to remain poignant, but we shall see. But yeah, the Blue Jays needed a slump buster. They needed someone to go out and make sure that, the efforts of Monday were not going to be something that lingered very long. And yeah, they may resurface, but the Blue Jays needed to get a big win, and they had their ace on the mound tonight in Hyunjin Ryu. And when you have your ace going, you always feel a little better about your chances, especially the way Ryu's pitched to start the season. And Hyunjin Ryu did not disappoint on that front. Easily making it into the 7th, which is good for reasons I'll talk about in just a minute. But he looked very much in control of that entire Yankees lineup. 6 2/3 innings pitched, gave up 4 hits, 1 walk, struck out 7, gets his first win of 2021. His ERA is now $1.89 on a season. That's the right price for a tin of Pringles. And it was not a close matchup tonight. And, I had said on the previous episode, I have not seen Jameson Taillon pitch because Pirates baseball is not very high on my viewing priorities. So, having Taillon come out, I believe this might have been his first start against the Blue Jays. And, being the Canadian kid, that's what you think of. So maybe there might have been some nerves, but the Blue Jays were more than happy to take advantage and set the tone early with some big hits. Josh Palacios with that big hit. I'm going to talk more about the hitters in the second segment, but they attacked Taillon and made Hyunjin Ryu's job so much easier just going through, which is good because the bullpen took some hits tonight with David Phelps taking a line drive off his back and having to leave the game. And then Julian Merriweather lasting one batter and then not coming out for the ninth. Granted, it would have been very easy to just not know anything really happened with Julian Merriweather. I mean, the Blue Jays did tack on another run in the eighth, so it was no longer a save situation. So that's probably why Tim Meza came out for the ninth. But Charlie Montoyo confirmed after the game that he was dealing with left hip irritation, which, again, for a guy whose career has been marked by glimpses of brilliance with long stints of injury time, that's worrying. You don't want to hear impingements when it comes to Julian Merriweather or irritation. The problems haven't really been with his hip. They've been with his arm. But you still don't want anything really that could alter what he does and what he's able to do for this Blue Jays team. Like a team that really needs that answer in the back. So, even in the happy Hyunjin Ryu start, I was able to find something to complain about. But, the bullpen still did enough to get the job done. And that's the important thing. And again, it's nice to actually be able to work with a nice cushion. It allows you to make mistakes. It allows Jordan Romano to have a bad outing, which he did. I mean, let's not get that twisted. Gave up the hit to Giancarlo Stanton that scored 2. Made things a little difficult. But, it's a lot easier when you can have those games and know they aren't going to be the difference between winning and losing. Because the Blue Jays offense had put it away at that point. And I'm going to talk about the offense here in a second. But as I mentioned at the top of the episode, this episode is brought to you by RockAuto.com. It's a family-owned business that's been in operation online for over 20 years with a vast, unique, and easy-to-navigate catalog of auto and body parts from hundreds of manufacturers. They have everything from engine control modules and brake parts to motor oil and carpet. They have water pumps with the pulleys in them, which I learned today are a thing that my car needs. They have serpentine belts, another thing I learned my car needs. So, you quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brand, specifications, and prices you prefer, and you're getting a reliably low price, whether you're a professional or a do-it-yourselfer. So don't spend twice as much for the same parts. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. And write Locked On in there, how did you hear about us box, so they know you came from us and everyone gets credit and everyone's happy. So check out amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com.
Yeah, you're making sports bets, but are you making winning sports bets? To win consistently, you need an edge, research, analytics. It's a lot. Or you could let BetQL do the work for you. Every game, every potential bet, from winners and losers to all the sides and totals, line movement, player props, and more. All backed by BetQL's proven data and analytics. BetQL analyzes over 350,000 unique bets every year and rates each potential bet on a scale of 1 to 5 stars. A 5-star is definitely a smart bet. 1 star, smart money is staying away. BetQL even lets you sort all of today's games with the best options listed right there at the top of your screen. BetQL gives you access to the same information the pros use. The stuff the sportsbooks don't want you to see. It's time to bet smarter and beat the books with BetQL. Visit BetQL.com today and use promo code PODCAST for 20% off. That's 20% off with promo code PODCAST at BetQL.com.
Hey, this second segment is brought to you by Locked On Today, hosted by Peter Bukowski. Locked On Today gets you all the news you need from around sports in under 20 minutes with the help of our local experts. Follow the Locked On Today podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts. And obviously the story of today was the Bats. The Bats finally did stuff. Yay! And it was consistent pressure. Yay! That's much better than, hoping for that big inning to just carry the team through a game. No, and again, it was taking advantage of a pitcher in Jameson Taillon that was making mistakes, that seemed nervous, and the Blue Jays were able to come up with what they needed to punish him. And it's just smart at bats doing it. Like in the bottom of the second, 2 out, Danny Jansen's up. Just watch Rowdy Tellez strike out. He knows he's in the same boat offensively as Rowdy Tellez, so could have very easily tried to do too much to be the hero and break out of that, but he worked Taillon for a walk, brought Josh Palacios up, and Josh Palacios has none of those worries because Josh Palacios is actually hitting. And he hit again with that big single to center to put the Blue Jays on the board. Timely hitting. It's a wonderful thing. And then even, when they couldn't get enough contact to get a hit, they were still having productive at-bats. 1 inning later, capitalizing on a Yankees error. Bo Bichette hits a ground ball. Gio Urshela throws it away. He ends up at second. And then just moving the runners. Vladdy singles him over to third. Randall Grichuk comes up, doesn't try and do too much, just lifts a fly ball, scores the run from third, gets the big play of that inning, gets the run aboard, and home. That's the big thing this team needs to be able to do, is have productive at-bats. Like, the strikeouts are just killing this team. And, it wasn't much better today. 9 strikeouts against the Yankees pitching staff today. But only 3 of those came from Jameson Taillon, and that's the big thing. Not wasting opportunities. And then, when mistake pitches start getting made, like that fastball he served up to Rowdy Tellez that Rowdy finally got a hold of and hit out for a home run. That's when you can, really make opposing pitchers pay for their mistakes. So when you can get those mistakes and know that you can take your best shot at it and it doesn't have to be perfect, but you can just kind of be free and easy with it. And you could see Rowdy after that. He needed something like that just to reassert to himself that he could do that sort of thing. I mean, the .069 batting average is anything but nice. But getting that first home run is huge to just take that weight off. And speaking of taking weight off, Vladdy continues to look good on both sides of the field. I mean, another 2 for 4 day, had an RBI, had a walk. His batting average is up to .378 on the season. He has an on base of 521, which is amazing. And then, of course, the defensive plays he made. We've seen this with Vladdy having an off season where he dedicated himself in the Dominican League to trying to play third. Seems to have made him better at first because he's proving to be more athletic, and maybe that is because he actually took the off season seriously after what happened in 2020. But he's performing moves that I know I can't perform. Granted, I'm a bit older than Vladdy, but I ain't doing the splits like that because I ain't getting back up. Like, that's just not happening. So Vladdy being able to turn tricks like that, being able to jump up and pick balls out of midair and start double plays, he is becoming just as important defensively for the Blue Jays as he is offensively. And if you said that was a possibility last year, I would have laughed. Because we figured Vladdy was moving to first to hide his defense, to make it so it didn't matter as much. And he's gone out there and been a highlight reel for a team that's needed a highlight reel on both sides of the ball. Like, Randall Grichuk's probably second on the team in that regard with the plays he's made in center field and, being able to actually hit a ball. But Vladdy is carrying this team right now. Like, I'm going to say it. I think he's the very, very, very early MVP frontrunner after 2 weeks. I know. Bold proclamation to make after 2 weeks of baseball. And it probably won't stick. I mean, no one in their right mind is going to believe that the home run leader at the end of the season is Wilson Ramos. Yes, that is true. Wilson Ramos leads the majors with 6 home runs for Detroit, ahead of a 5-way tie between J.D. Martinez, Rafael Devers, Ryan McMahon, Tyler Naquin, and Byron Buxton. One, maybe 2 of those names are going to be in the top 10 for home runs at the end of the year. So, trust me, I know I'm kind of blowing smoke a little bit with that Vladdy proclamation. But he's well on his way so far to establishing himself as a strong candidate. I mean, you can throw J.D. Martinez up there. Mike Trout is always going to get votes. But so far, Vladdy is asserting himself. And that is something the Blue Jays need to see. Bo Bichette had a very nice night, too, with his 2 for 4. And 2 runs scored. That is what the Blue Jays need offensively, for those guys to assert themselves. And then, hopefully they get enough production out of the rest of the order to make it stand up. Still not coming from Danny Jansen. As I said, Rowdy's still got 2 hits on the season. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. still kind of shaking things out. Kevin Biggio's still trying to adjust. So it's got to be those guys. It's got to be Bo. It's got to be Vladdy. And for now, it's got to be Randall Grichuk. Those guys have to be able to make things happen and set the tone. And yeah, they have Josh Palacios at the bottom of the lineup helping out right now. And probably going to be helping out for a little bit with the news that Teoscar Hernandez does indeed have COVID and will not be with the team for a little bit. It's going to be necessary for them to shoulder this and move forward. And I'm just happy that tonight it wasn't completely necessary, but they were still doing it anyway. And the Blue Jays, pulled themselves into a 4-way tie for second place behind the Red Sox, which is still weird, but whatevs. Anyway, this is a good time to remind you that This episode is brought to you by betonline.ag, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action, be it NBA, NHL, MLB, MLS is starting this week. You want to get in on some MMA fights? You can do whatever you want at betonline.ag, even bet on the Oscars or reality TV. Anything you can imagine, BetOnline has you covered for all the news, scores, and odds. It's the best way to place your bets. It's free to sign up. Head over to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit by using the promo code LOCKEDON. So check out betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts.
This episode is brought to you by ESPN Plus. Dustin Poirier and Conor the Notorious McGregor will settle the score at UFC 264 on Saturday, July 10th, exclusively on ESPN Plus. After Conor McGregor defeated Poirier in 2014, Poirier evened the score in January, setting up the most highly anticipated rubber match in UFC history. UFC 264 is exclusively available to ESPN Plus subscribers for $69.99. Or sign up now to get UFC 264 and an ESPN Plus annual plan for $89.98. Visit espnplus.com/Spotify.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, this final segment is brought to you by Locked On Fantasy Baseball, a daily fantasy baseball podcast hosted by veteran analyst Scott Cullen. He uses data and nearly 2 decades of fantasy baseball experience to offer the strategies and waiver wire pickups that lead to league wins. Follow Locked On Fantasy Baseball on the Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts. And that's the last bit of cheerfulness I'm going to have for a little bit here, because I said this segment is going to get a little deeper, a little dark, and that is what I'm going to do, because I didn't touch on this yesterday, because I didn't feel right commenting immediately, and I didn't feel right, trying to take a lead on this, but Aaron Hicks sat out Monday's game, that 3-1 win the Yankees had over the Blue Jays, in protest of the shooting of Dante Wright in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. And again, sports are getting involved in this because, we have to. It's the only way people will actually pay attention is when they get mad because the sports ball is not happening. But the Twins postponed their game. They're making that up as a doubleheader on Wednesday with the Red Sox. The Timberwolves delayed their game by a day. I can't remember if the Wild ended up doing something, but it's hockey, so it's 50-50 with them. But in any case, Aaron Hicks sat out. And, players are vocal about it. I mean, it's not going to surprise listeners of this podcast to know that Marcus Stroman was very vocal about it. And I appreciate him being very vocal about it, about how this trend is, I wish I could say it's disturbing, but it happens so often. It's not disturbing anymore. It's just sad. It's frustrating and it's sad that it keeps happening. And, I don't even buy it. I don't even buy any kind of excuse anymore. That Dante Wright got pulled over for having something dangling on the rearview mirror. Apparently that's something the police can just instantly, check you and pull you over for. And I would be in danger of that. My car, my dead car right now, has a face mask hanging from the rearview window. It's an emergency face mask in case, I forget mine or, something happens to my face mask and I need a replacement. Police can pull me over for that. Will they pull me over? Depends on which police officer I get. And unfortunately, Dante Wright got a police officer that mistook a taser for a gun. Why the taser was coming out in the first place, that's probably the bigger question. But this officer, who had 26 years of experience, pulled the gun instead and shot that 20-year-old father. It's just absolutely... It's heartbreaking for the Wright family. But again, I wish I could feel anything other than, of course it happened again, because nothing has changed. No updates to police procedures have been made. No actual effort has been put forward to de-emphasize weapons as a first response when it comes to these. No effort has been made to demilitarize the police. Like I said, Marcus Stroman's out here, doing what he can to raise the banner, and that's one of the reasons why you'll almost never hear me say anything bad about Marcus Stroman, because I respect the hell out of that man. Takes a lot to be a black man in baseball and having to go out there every time this happens and be a face and have to respond to it. And Marcus doesn't shy away from that spotlight. He will go into it and he will say what he wants, because that's the kind of dude he is. I respect the hell out of that. And one of the things I saw tonight in one of my social circles online, someone said online, "Why is murder an appropriate response to property damage? But property damage is not an appropriate response to murder." And that's in regards to the demonstrations and the riots that are happening in Minnesota in response to this. And people being more upset that, lawns are being trampled. And that cars are being attacked, that windows are being broken. Then the loss of a 20-year-old father. And one of the friends very succinctly summed it up by saying 9 words: because social ease is more valuable than human life. And if that doesn't freaking sum up the absolute cesspool that we find ourselves in as a culture, those 9 words, social ease is more valuable than human life. That is why there's no police reform. That is why black people have to stay on their best behavior when trying to respond to people at their worst behavior. It's why transgender people have to continuously fight for basic human rights, because cisgender people don't care to learn an extra set of pronouns or think they deserve control over that situation. It's because actually confronting racism against Asian people in this country is more difficult than just saying, well, I don't do it, so I'm not part of the problem. No, but you're not part of the solution either. And I know I've got many good people listening to this podcast, and I hope y'all are being vocal about this, about these injustices in the world, and examining, what you might be able to do to be a part of that solution. There's so many people who are put in a bad spot, and unfortunately, it seems like the power to do anything about it is left in the hands of people who do not care about anyone other than themselves and their own social ease. Because that is more valuable to them. Being able to just go around as they usually do and just not have to think about it. And when they're forced to think about it, they don't like thinking about it, so they make rules against it. And we can't do anything about it. But try and muster up the strength for another fight, to muster up the grief for another death that did not need to happen. To try and muster the courage to fight that abhorrent behavior that we see in the day-to-day. That's what I think Aaron Hicks is trying to do, is just the one thing he knew he could do. Just take some time for himself, take himself out of the situation, and bring awareness to what's going on. I hope eventually awareness leads to solutions, and not just white people or cis people causing more problems because they don't want to think. I don't know. That's just what I have to say on things. I know I went a little over, but I got positive feedback on my including political things, so I had to get that off my chest. So thank y'all for listening to it. We'll be back tomorrow with hopefully the discussion of a glorious Blue Jays victory over the Yankees in the finale of their series. It'll be Corey Kluber against Ross Stripling, so should be a lot of offense, hopefully. If you want to get the notifications for the podcast on that game, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Blue Jays on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, the Odyssey app, wherever you get podcasts. Make sure you click that button so you don't miss an episode. You can follow the podcast on Twitter and Facebook at Locked On Jays. Episode links are usually posted on Twitter when I'm not falling asleep. And you can follow me on the social media site at _J_Andrews. As you know, the underscores are there because Twitter is dumb. Sometimes it feels like all we can do in this freaking world is just try and speak out and hope the right people are listening. Or that the wrong people are listening and they're too stupid to not reveal themselves as the wrong people and, get booted off said platform. But that would require Twitter to not be dumb. But anyway, until next time, for everyone at the Locked On Podcast Network and everyone at jaysfromthecouch.com, I'm AJ Andrews. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode. And y'all take care.